It's all code. We've forgotten that everything around us is symbol, signs, all of it is code. But we need to decipher the code, we need to understand the code. We need to know what that language is saying to us. I mean, this verse is so overlooked. If people could only read between the lines and not read what they've been told, or believe what they've been told and continue spewing out what they've been told, but instead read the words as it's said, study the words, tear the words apart. Those who are familiar with language, with spelling, are familiar with the word etymology. And etymology is means just to look at the anatomy, the build-up, how the origin of a word came about. And that's what we need to do when we're reading stuff. We need to know the origin of words and what is really being said. And even in English, it's plain to see that Jesus, the Christ, he's saying here the kingdom of God does not come with those type of observations. He was speaking to the Pharisees. They were religious. He said, nor shall it come. And they'll say, here it's here or there it's there. Because he says plainly, behold, the kingdom of God is within you. And everything is code, even the words of Jesus Christ, the descendant of Arthur. So we're going to look at the body and the spine, because everything is within us, apparently. And most people know there are 33 vertebrae in the spine. But most people don't know that there are said to be 33 pairs of nervous systems or nerve groups which pass through the entire structure of the spine. In Tibetan Buddhism, the highest chakra, the crown chakra, if you look at that word, C, crown chakra, C is the third letter, C is the third letter, 33. But anyway, in Tibetan Buddhism, numbers the code and the key to everything. In Tibetan Buddhism, the highest chakra, the crown chakra, the Sahasrara, is represented by a flower with a white centre and 33 downward pointing petals. There are said to be 33 turns in a complete sequence of our DNA. The animal kingdom is divided by biologists into 33 philia. You see, from the last presentation we spoke about the numbers 3, 6 and 9. When we looked at the tree and the fruit of the tree and the importance of 3, 6 and 9. And here we are looking at the body and the language and the anatomy of the body, and how the number 3 is very significant in the body. So, in everything really. The lowest temperature in Fahrenheit at which water remains a liquid is 33 degrees. This also means that if counting upwards, the first temperature at which water, the most essential substance for life, begins to flow is also at 33 degrees. Everything's code. Everything. Once in a blue moon is when there are 2 full moons in the same month. 2 blue moon, 2 full moons. This phenomenon occurs on average every 33 months. Amazing, isn't it? The sun will rise at the exact same spot on the horizon every 33 years. I think there's a lesson to be learned here. And this is the lesson I'm trying to show people, that everything's written in the heavens. Before it was made manifest on the earth, before this code, this matrix from which we live, before this became our reality, which is the experience which we're living in, before it became that, it was up there in the heavens. And as I'm trying to show, it's the heavens that show us the code. And once we observe the heavens, we then see where we should be within that code in order for us to get the benefit of, or all the benefits of that code. We are Beni Elohim. We want the benefits. We don't want an e-fit or something that is a persona of ourselves. We want the real fit. What is real? So the sun will rise at the exact same spot on the horizon every 33 years. You see, our ancestors had a clock. The 33rd day of the year is February the 2nd, also known as Groundhog Day for most Americans. Groundhog Day. Most people have probably seen that film, Groundhog Day. Bill Murray, is it? That's in it. The film's interesting because it's set at Thanksgiving, more or less, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, as the sun, we were just speaking about the sun there, the sun will rise at the exact same spot on the horizon in 33 years, and really the whole story of us is the story of the sun, the journey of the sun through the ecliptic, through the houses and up into Hyperborea to the north. But anyway, the movie Groundhog Day is set on Thanksgiving Day, on that period when the sun disappears or begins to disappear into the womb, into the tomb for 3 days. And that happens on the 21st of December, and the sun itself disappears almost. We have almost total darkness during that time, especially more further north you go, anywhere in Europe really as well. That time of year is complete darkness, and that's where we get the sun has risen, and the celebration of Thanksgiving and I suppose Christmas. But it's amazing that movie, it's coded in all this. There's a lot, everything's code, and that movie Groundhog Day, he keeps waking up on the 33rd day of the year, which is a clue for us because they tell us things in the movie, but in the movies. But the other amazing thing, if you remember, when he awakens, every day that he awakens, it's Sonny and Cher. I got you, babe. I got you, babe. It's got that song, Sonny and Cher. Sonny and Cher. Now in Scotland we say share, to share something. We share. Sonny and Cher. And I think it's quite funny how it's been put in there. And the album itself, the track Sonny and Cher released, I can't remember what year it was, 66, 67, it was probably 66 with the numbers, but anyway, I don't know. But I know it was written in June the 7th, and it was released in July, around about the 26th or something like that, or the 18th and the 20th or something in different countries. But again, that's the summer solstice, and the period of the summer solstice, that song, I Got You, Babe, Sonny and Cher, which was used in the Groundhog movie. So everything around us is a matrix, it's a code, and 33, 3, 6 and 9, 9 being the magic number. Everything is 9, A to I, K, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, 1 to 9. So we live in an AI world. Everything is coded by 3, 6 and 9. So we're looking again at the spine and the numbers and the code of language, and how language is coded all around us, but we miss it. And sometimes even in English the language is plain and simple to us, but we miss it. So in the opening chapters of Genesis, which we looked at there in the last sort of topic, we looked at the tree and the fruit of the tree. We realised that the difference in the word Elohim from the rest of the words relating to the word God, Lord God, within the scriptures. And we recognise that Elohim, it represents us, and it represents, as I'm showing here, the physical body, because 33 times it is said that Elohim, the word Elohim, or the spelling of Elohim, which is plural, the gods, they are mentioned before even any mention of Yud He Vav He. which isn't mentioned until Genesis chapter 2 verse 4, which we've seen in the last sort of lesson, the last slides, the last PowerPoint that we looked at the beginning. So the Bible also records 33 miracles. I think that's significant actually. Go back, it's recorded at least 33 times there, the word Elohim, and I think that is significant considering we have this 33 vertebrae that go through our body. So, and also we know other things, we know many of these things, but I'll run through them. The Bible also records 33 miracles of Jesus. Most people don't know that. And within Judaism it teaches that the Sephirot, or the Kabbalah tree, has 33 elements, if you include the whole and all its constituent parts. So there is the Kabbalah tree. And from the last sort of lesson in the slides that we looked at, we were looking at the tree and the serpent within the tree and who was the serpent. And we can see here the serpent is its lower part of its tail is at the bottom of the tree, and the roots of the tree are the actual underworld, the stuff that feeds on the water, maritime. We spoke about that in the first part, but I'll try not to dwell too much on that. But we can see the serpent coming out of the water and wrapping its way up around the tree. And as I spoke about in the first sort of lecture talks, in the last presentation, that it swirls around, coils around the tree before it comes up into the upper branches or the canopy of the tree, and it takes a sharp left over until it comes onto the bottom Sephirot, number 1, 2, 3, 4, and continues up into the 9 realms. So we see on the tree here there's 9 realms in the upper world, and there's 9 realms of the lower world, which as I spoke about and showed on the previous presentation, that on the last PowerPoints, that this idea was seen within the Nordic and the Norse people and the Vikings and so forth, but it was the same with the Mayans, it was the same with the Incas. You had 9 realms above and 9 realms below, and you had this serpent that wrapped around the tree or made its way through the tree, and quite often you would see man sitting in. For those who know about numbers, 9, apart from it being A to I, the only letters of creation and the only numbers of creation, apart from being that, the number 9 and 9, if you add them together, both representing the duality of life, the underworld and the upper world. If you add the 9 and 9 together, you get 18, and 18 is the number of life, because if you add 18, 1 and 8, it takes you back to 9. So 9 being the magic number, and here we see the 9 realms, which we would see as the 9 realms of Asgard, Midgard, and whatever else within the Nordic, and this is exactly the same what I'm trying to show here within the Kabbalah and within Judaism. But these things, of course, have been hidden. They don't want you to see the familiarity between the European belief systems, which they call pagan, and their systems. And from the last presentation, we had some images of the tree within the dome, and the same image with the snake coiling around. And if you remember from the last presentations too, I spoke quite in detail about the twirling and the swirls and all the artwork in the cathedrals and so forth. And these are the nodes of the energy points, which we can see here on this Kabbalah. It's just for reference only, this image, but it's all a Kabbalah tree. But at the moment, what I'm trying to show people is that we're actually in the lower branches. Most people, unless you're born above, and this is what Jesus meant. Jesus, who was a Galilean, came from where this twist in the tree is up on the left hand side here. He was a Galilean. He was from this area known as Galilee, and he was the ghoul, and he was telling people to take this right turn, basically come out of the underworld, come out of the law of maritime, and everything below here, which is to do with Britain and the spine of Albion. Everything below here is the underworld, and yeah, you will have your riches and you will have your pleasures, but it's the lower realm. You haven't reached nirvana, you haven't began to trod in the garden yet, and if you believe the snake's still your enemy, which is all revealed in the first presentation. The tree and the fruit, you should watch that, go back and watch that if you haven't watched that. If you've just came into the presentation or just joined this presentation, then I would suggest that you go back and look at the first presentation. This is the second part, which is the body and the spine, and how the body and the spine connects with the tree and the fruit. And so you've got your underworld, which is this lower realm here, and your upper world, which is Eden, or the paradise within Eden. So it is said that Jesus himself lived upon the earth for 33 years. In numerology, 33 is most well known as a master number, representing the highest spiritual achievement, sometimes called the Christ consciousness. And again, it's called the Christ consciousness. Again, see there's these letters, Christ consciousness, CC. There's nothing by chance, everything's code. CC is the number 33, Christ consciousness. So it is recorded also that King David ruled in Jerusalem for 33 years. I've been saying to people for a very, very long time that the Bible is not something to be mocked or laughed about, or to say that it's been written or published by men. It certainly has been published by men, but it's a code book. And the people who control us have to tell us. So all the Bibles, all the books, all the Veda texts, the Islamic books, they're all code. They're not literal stories, but code to our ascension up the 33 vertebrae. So the 33 segments of which I'm just talking about, it's all to do with ascension. The 33 segments of the spinal column are also identified as Jacob's ladder or Jacob's pillar in the Bible. Did you know when Jacob himself climbs to the top of the pillar, or when he arises? Now that word arise, it's all language, it's all spell. The word arises is also the word Aries. Aries is this part of the mind, the two spiral horns, the shofars. Jews today still blow the shofar, the ram's horn, but it's actually the two parts of the human brain, or not the human brain, but the living brain, the living being. It is, so the pillars are not only there for us to arise into, it also represents Aries, the word Aries, telling us where to arise. And if we think of the story of the tree of life, and we think of the story of Jacob and Isaac, and all these stories about the tree, the burning bush, and so on, it really is about the tree and rising, where the tree is, as we looked at in the first presentation, and how to arise in that tree, which is ties to the heaven, Aries. So when Jacob climbs the top of the pillar, or the two pillars, he arises. He is suddenly filled with knowledge of the divine God, that which was within him. And then he names the place Peniel. And all this is spelled out in Genesis chapter 33. So again, everything's code there, if we just look. The oil of Christ is the spinal fluid which rises up through our spinal column, the 33 vertebrae. Just as the Naga serpent or the Naga energies arise, again that word arise, Aries, arise through the 7 chakras into the Pleiades, which are the 7 churches in the upper realm, the upper room, which is the canopy. So too we must also connect and arise within the zodiac and its cycle, within its interconnecting planets or its energies, within our houses, within the ecliptic, passing through Orion's belt, the time of Nimrod's troubles and the time of the rebellion within us all. We all need to understand how the heavens work in order to pass through Orion's belt. And everything is a torus field above us. Some say that finding that ladder can lift your consciousness into the pineal gland, the spiritual third eye, the upper room, which is the highest part of the brain, the Golgotha, the skull. And there are 3 sections to the brain, 3 brains, but the brain itself is split into 4 parts, which are the 4 rivers of Eden and the garden, of course. So, yeah. When I say 3 brains, what it actually is we have the reptilian mind, which is the lower mind, which is fight or flight, and then we have the logical and emotional mind, which tries to bring the balance, which is the middle mind. And then you've got the spiritual and the super logical and the mathematical, and in that third part also is the pineal and the entrance to the pineal, I should say, and the divine throne. So there are three parts to the brain, but the brain is watered by 4 rivers, and those 4 rivers are the streams of light, which we've seen at the beginning of this video, and we'll speak about it further in other presentations. So we know that when the Christ oil rises up into the head, into the brain, the place of the skull, which is called Golgotha, it is then crucified. And to crucify just means to increase in its power, to squeeze, like the olive press. You squeeze olives to get the olive oil out, and you purify it. So to crucify means to increase in power, and it remains 2.5 days, which is the moon's period in a sign, in the tomb, which is the cerebellum. And on the 3rd day, it ascends to the pineal gland that connects the cerebellum with the optic thalamus, which is the central eye in the temple of God, which is our mind's eye. In his emerald tablet, Hermes declares that the above is also like the below. He's talking about the sky, the heavens now. So the above is just like the body, what's up there in the heavens is also within the body. The superior, what's up there, is like the inferior. The lesser, or the lesser gods, the lesser heavens, the lesser stars, is like the greater, and the greater like the lesser. Everything flows together, and everything follows one immense pattern. And this is where the Christian Bible says that how can the hand say to the body, what you do? Everyone has their part. But he also says that if anyone can break the mystery of the pattern at any one point, at any one level, he or she has the key to the whole mystery. And this is what I'm trying to show here. I'm trying to show that I have about 4 or 5 parts to the whole pattern. 4 or 5 facts to how it works. It works in the heavens, it works in the standing stones, it works in the waterways, it works in the language, and it works in the cultural traditions that were handed down. So what I'm showing is it's not just one layer. If you can break just one part of this mystery, then you've got it all. And I'm not in any way saying that I've got it all, but what I'm trying to show with these presentations is this is how it all pieces together, so that we can break the pattern and understand it, and so that all of us, he or she, all of us, has the key to the whole mystery. So the key to the mystery, according to the emerald tablets, is that there are 7 steps. It's always the number 7, the magic number, but 7 steps to activate the DNA, because we're activating the DNA in that 33 strands, that 33 specific cords of DNA. And so the way we do that is first of all by purification of our body and our mind and soul, and the only way we can do that is by the moon. And I was having conversations about that with someone just recently, that the moon, when it's in its full moon, is where we get the word lunacy, because they believed in the past that when the moon was at its full beam, its full expression, that's when people went psychotic and mad. And it is true that the full moon does tend to send people off on a rant and off the wall a bit, and that is because the moon is the magnetism, whereas the sun is the electricity, and the moon in its magnetism is pulling all the negative forces and the negative energies from the surface of creation, and from ourselves, from our beings, because we have the 9 chakras within us. We have 7 chakras, but related to the sun and moon too, we have these energies within us. And the only step for what the emerald tablets tell us, that the first step to purification is not following the sun, as most people have been doing. They follow the sun calendars and think they can ascend, or they can store their Christ consciousness and their Christ oil, and as long as they're doing it within their moon signs and within their sun signs then they are ascending, but that's not the case, because the Emerald Tablets are quite clear that the first step of Jacob's ladder is the personal purification. So it's personal. You have to look within yourself, the personal purification of your body, and mind and soul, and that is represented by the moon and the moon cycles, which takes us back to Genesis 1:14, which tells us, which I've got here, why the moon, which tells us the cycles of life. The moon itself tells us the calendar. When we see a full moon, we know that it's coming near to the end of the, it will come around with a new moon, and it's a time of negative, pooling of negative energies. And when it becomes a new moon, it's a clear new moon. So it's time to adjust ourselves with that new moon, in order to cleanse ourselves, because there's no point attaching yourself to a moon when it's mid-cycle or when you're going through a cycle, because, especially if you're a woman, because your cycle will be thrown, and you'll be knocked forever in your period. I suppose that's why it's called a period. So we need to understand the moon cycle and the phases of the moon and how those phases interact with us. And these are just a few scriptures that show the importance of the moon. And when we understand the moon, the key to everything is the moon, then other things that have been presented to us begin to have a clearer picture. If we all remember the moon landings in 1969. So 1969 was clearly a time for ascension for the masses, and they mocked that. 1969 being the symbol for cancer, or 69 being the symbol for cancer, but we also have the number 666 there. So, but the moon and the period of 1969 was clearly our signal to waking up. So why the moon? And what we're going to do now is look at Genesis chapter 12, because we see the same story. I'm saying to people it's all in language, and we need to read between the lines. We need to know how to spell, and people are shunning things like the Bible because they don't understand it. When Paul quite clearly tells us in the New Testament that everything was given to us for correction and rebuking and for teaching and for all these sort of things, and that what we're reading is allegory. Doesn't mean that they didn't happen, but they're written down as allegory, as lessons for us. And we see that even in Jesus' words. He says, in my Father's house there are many mansions. Now he's clearly talking about, when he says in my Father's house, it's the same as this here we're away to read in Genesis 12:1. His Father's house is Arthur the Great Bear. We looked at Arthur the Great Bear in the previous. Our Father's house, Arthur's house. All the houses move through Arthur. Anything that does not stay in line with Arthur, our Father, and the Great Wheel, anything that's not in line with that is not correct. But he gives us further instruction here. This character Jesus, this druid, he is a chief druid, he's a prince, and he is the Son of God, as we all are the Son, the Beni Elohim. We're all the children of the Most High. We're a manifestation of the Most High. And as Jesus said here, in my Father's house, Arthur the Great Wheel, anything that does not remain in Arthur is not of the Father. And the wandering stars are not of our Father. They never remained within the wheel. But he gives further clues, and that is many mansions. That word mansions is just simply moonshines. He tells us here, the houses, there are many houses, but it's the moonshines, or the motions of the moon that matters. So in Genesis 12 we see the same thing. It's to do with the moon. Abraham, he's not quite Abraham yet. He's simply Abram. Abram's told to get himself out of the country, away from his kinsmen and away from your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. So it's a physical place, but he's told, get away. Why? What does it mean, get away from your father's house, his father's house? As I said there, just that it's to do with the heavens and the constellations. His father was not our father. He was not following the cycle of Arthur the Great Bear. Where did Abraham and his kinsmen live? This is a question we need to ask when we're reading these texts. Where did Abraham or Abram and his kinsmen and his father live? Well, we're told it's Ur of the Chaldees. Well, Ur of the Chaldees, or Ur of Chaldees, are the lands of Babylon, which is the first rung of the ladder. And for those who are familiar with the esoteric understanding or the Gnostic understanding of the text, Babylon and Egypt always represent our exile from ourselves, us living in our lower chakras or our lower realm. And here we have Abraham or Abram being told to leave his father's house, leave Ur of the Chaldees, leave Babylon, leave Egypt. It's the same story. Get out of idolatry. Stop worshipping the gods. You are the gods. Stop worshipping everything. And you must move on to the first rung of the ladder, which is how we purify ourselves. The first rung of the ladder is associating ourselves with the moon and the moon cycles, the new moon. Ur, the god of Ur of the Chaldees, Google it, god of Ur. You'll come up with this. It was the sacred city of the moon god, and the name Camarina, the word marina, Camarina, water, a reflection, something which is not true. But their god was called Camarina. Also, there's other names for it, but it's thought to be related to the much later appearing of the Arabic word for moon, Kamar, Camarina. And we see that above every single mosque. So this is what I've been trying to say to people. All the religions are man-made, and all they've done is taken worship of the sun, the moon and the stars. And to ascend, we can't do that. We have to abandon all the gods. We have to make a space for ourselves, for the Almighty Creator within the temple. And we have to do that by first of all observing the calendar in the heaven, Genesis 1:14. The calendar in the heaven quite clearly tells us that we, the Elohim, the Benu Elohim, we set the heavens in motion as a calendar for us. And it's the only way that we get out of it. Not by following the religions who observe the moon and then worship them, as we're seeing here. This is why Abram or Avram was told to get out. He was stuck in worshipping the moon. They worshipped the moon and Ur. The moon was a Canaanite deity, or known as Sin, a moon goddess. You see where we get the word sin from? The people are going around this world thinking that they're sinners. And they are. Because in order to ascend out of this lower mundane world that belongs to the prince of this air, which belongs to the god of this world, in order to truly ascend, we have to know the calendar. And this is exactly what Avram was told. Get out and go to the place where I will show you the land, a physical place. Go to the place. What was he being shown? Well, later on he's shown the land of milk and honey, as we read it. And the land of milk and honey is the land to do with the Milky Way. He's shown a strip of land, which is the land of Canaan, where you can see Ursa Major, Ursa Minor. He sees Canis Major, Canis Minor. He looks up and he sees it all. He's not stuck on worshipping the moon. He's moved to another land altogether, the land of Canaan. In Canaan they worshipped the goddess of the moon. And here we see the goddess here. Interesting, we spoke about the three brides and the three Bridgets. And you have three maidens here. And this is certainly not the creator, but they're coming in the honour of the moon. But this is another, as we've seen in the first, there are gods upon this earth. Shami, servants who represent the Most High. And these three maidens who represent the moon are coming before him. But this is where we get the idea of sin. The Catholic Church invented the word sin. But they didn't. It's there because the Catholic Church also worship the moon. In fact, they worship everything, everything and anything, but they do not worship the divine. And the divine wishes to dwell inside us, inside the body and the spine within the 33 vertebrae.